What's up, everyone? We're Journey to the West, and I'm here with Jay.
Hey, I'm Jay.
I'm here with Sen.
Hi, I'm Sen.
And I'm here with Wen.
Hi, everyone. I am Wen.
And today's topic will be food. But first, I'm going to start out with a little story I had. I went out to eat pho with my mom, and we were just enjoying our normal time, mother-daughter time, and I ordered a pho with meatballs, and then my mom ordered a rare steak. And then we were looking at this table next to us, and we see these non-Asians, and we're like, okay, cool. Nice to see a non-Asian once in a while. Maybe not, I don't know. Mixed feelings, but I was just minding my own business, eating my food, when all of a sudden I hear a loud splat noise. And then I look, and what is that? And then I see this dude literally just splatting sriracha. And then after that, he brings the hoisin sauce and then continues to splat a whole bunch of it. And then I'm looking at it, and their bowl basically looks all watered. I don't know. Defiled and gross. And I'm like, I can't say anything about this, but did anybody teach this dude how to eat pho? Did anybody teach him that he's supposed to put it in a small plate and then dip the meat? Not put it in your whole entire bowl and then turn it into sriracha and hoisin sauce chaos. So yeah, my very sad pho story, which is why we're going to bring up Asian food in general. In particular, I think food is a very complicated issue for most of us because sometimes it's a reminder of our heritage, other times it's a reminder of how we are racialized within our societies. Jay, what is your favorite food, for example?
I like all kinds of foods. Lately I've been really obsessed with the pork katsu curry over rice because I've been watching a lot of anime, and you might recognize that from Yuri on Ice. I also had sushi the other day, but I also love pizza.
And Sen, you have any favorites?
I'm not that particular with food in terms of I pretty much eat anything as long as it's not I guess the only thing I won't eat is offal or whatever because I'm too westernized or whatever. Viet food mostly because I'm Viet.
And how about you, Wen?
My favorite food pretty sure will always be Chinese food, because we did have a restaurant before my family, and then we will always be cooking Chinese food, but we will also eat some Vietnamese dishes that we make at home. But I will usually I'll eat or at least try most foods, but Chinese food will always be my favorites. And I guess when as I got older, because I used to be more really particular about taste of my foods, and there's sometimes, I don't know, my standards must have gotten lower because it's just more of, I was like, oh, okay, as long as it's edible enough, I guess, or then I'll usually try something or eat something, because I try not to be rude and complain about other foods, but yeah, so it's pretty much Chinese food will always be my favorite.
Interesting thing was, I notice when non-Asians come to Asian restaurants, they have a particular taste they like, and it feels sometimes when a Asian restaurant either has to cater to a non-Asian audience or something like that, they have to either water down their food. And there was a show that perfectly conveyed how I felt about the complicated issues being an Asian in diaspora along with food, and that was Ugly and Delicious. Jay, what are your thoughts about Ugly and Delicious? Anything come up that you love about it?
If you follow me on Twitter, I did sing its praises. I mean, it's everything that I wanted in a show about food and culture and identity that I didn't know that I wanted. And it really helps to have the perspective of an Asian American as well, because he sees everything that I see, and him and his guests end up vocalizing all of the things that I've been thinking about for so long. So I love the show. It's on Netflix. I would recommend that everybody watch it.
Oh, just to add to that, it's free for a month, I think. So, you can just watch it and see how it goes if you're not keen on the Netflix subscription. I really liked it as a non-American because there's a lot of parallels you can draw, especially with food. Everyone can relate to it. there's a lot of like forgotten histories that aren't in the mainstream consciousness, or at least with Asian Americans, especially regarding like the Viet Cajun cuisine, Vietnamese refugee shrimpers versus the KKK, which was really interesting. I think my favorite episode was probably that episode, or the dumpling episode. That was probably my favorite, because it kind of highlights that with Asian cuisine, it's not that different. It's not that foreign or alien. Like, people eat it all the time. It's made from the same ingredients as a lot of other things, and with a lot of skill as well, but people just don't put it on the same level as some like French cuisines or Italian cuisines, as they mentioned.
I actually have not seen it yet. 'Cause I don't have Netflix, but I am curious about it because I keep hearing everyone, like, people are just talking about it. So like, I need to try to watch it sometime.
There were 2 episodes that really touched me. Like, for example, in the Thanksgiving episode, when David Chang, I believe, is the one who's hosting this show, but he talks about how his mother made kalbi, and one time his classmates came over to eat with him, and then the thing was it smelled really bad, and then the next day he was made fun of. I think that is a common story that people hear when it comes to the Asian American experience. Either their friends are exposed to their foods, or they somehow bring their food as a lunchbox, and then people don't like it, and then they use it as a marker of their racialized identity. And then there's this thing where in the crawfish episode where they were talking about the Vietnamese and the KKK, I knew about it, but now I like how it's on mainstream conscious and they can't deny it anymore, because it was a scary time, I bet. I mean, there's a big Viet community in Louisiana, and it's just so hard to watch, especially since these people like have already been fishing in their home in Vietnam, and then now they try to do the same thing here and they're penalized for it. And then now, supposedly, according to the episode, they said, okay, now they got garnered more respect, but it's like, you can't diminish what they went through, which was actually hardships. And people forget that. People forget the hardships they went through. Which brings me to how there's this dispute as to whether, in a way, foods can be appropriated. Which brings to the topic of cultural appropriation.
Cultural appropriation is when you borrow from another culture and use it for your own personal gain. And now, that wouldn't necessarily be a problem in a perfect world, but there are a lot of things like, say, the history of colonialism, racism, institutionalized inequalities that all factor into whether or not something is a problem or not. So it's a lot more complex than, say, oh, this person isn't Japanese and is cooking Japanese food. It's a bigger deal than that.
Me personally, I agree with Jay's definition. However, I would like to point out how in the US, in scope and terminology, people see cultural appropriation as a dominant culture borrowing another culture's cuisine for their benefits. But then it feels weird because I see a lot of non-Asians appropriating Asian stuff in general, and they don't think it's appropriation. But I'm like, no, it is appropriation to me because it's our stuff. You're borrowing and you're benefiting from it. But some people may view otherwise. Which brings us to the next point, which is that lately, I think what I like about Ugly Delicious is that it points out the complexity of another problem we have, which is gentrification of Asian food, or in a way, revitalizing it, but in a sense to make it either palatable to the American audience or Western audience, or to profit off of it.
Well, the big one that comes to mind for me, there's this restaurant called Pok Pok, which is Thai, and the owner is a white dude. He actually spent, I think, over 10 years in Thailand learning the cuisine and brought back all of the techniques and recipes that he learned over there here. And now that restaurant has been awarded the most authentic Thai restaurant in the country. And granted, he put the work in to learn about this, but I feel very uncomfortable with the fact that somebody who is not only not Thai, but is actually white, is benefiting from the culture of Thai people, and Thai people are not getting that recognition that they deserve.
If you see, like, David Chang mentioned in Ugly Delicious how he feels conflicted because with white people, they didn't go through the struggle.
Yeah, they don't understand what it's like to be ridiculed for having food that's different. And now that it's all hip and cool, they get to reap the benefits of it, and not the people who were made fun of or ostracized.
The cultural appropriation is a neutral term. It doesn't necessarily lean either way. It's just usually when people refer to it, it's referring to something negative. The thing is, sometimes there's a question that arises is can we appropriate our own culture in terms of taking like a cuisine, like say Vietnamese, that's associated with like, I guess, lower class people or just us as a third world nation, which we're not, but that's how people see us as perpetual war victims, and then elevating it to a quote-unquote bougie level that normally Vietnamese people probably wouldn't go to or necessarily be able to afford. There's a bit of a conflicting feeling about that. I mean, at the end of the day, if an Asian person's profiting off of, you know, Asian culture, I'm not going to be mad about it. But something to think about when we think about places that are getting gentrified. Like, are we complicit in that as well sometimes?
Especially what I like to point out is most Asian restaurants, the ones in certain areas like Chinatown or anywhere, basically, they have to charge lower prices and compromise on that, while others can jack up the price and call it Asian food, which is a problem. Any thoughts you have, Wen, in your experience as someone who's working in a restaurant or has worked?
I remember like how my dad would always explain about the foods, especially because since we did have a restaurant, and he would explain the funny thing with Chinese food, especially Chinese food. He said that a lot of the stuff that he's cooking, at least for the customers, majority of them, he said these menu dishes, he said that they pretty much are been very, they changed a lot of it because he said no, it is not how Chinese food is like supposed to taste, or this is what or some of these don't even really exist in back over in the country. And it was just a lot of stuff that they had to change because he said that he always say it like this. He goes, most Americans, they like sweet. So you had to end up changing, so you had said that when he cooked these dishes, they always had to make it more sweeter for them. Because everything's like, he goes, they can't handle spicy foods or these really savory ones. So it's just like one of those things where most people, it's funny that most time people keep thinking that, oh, this is what real Chinese food is, and no, it's not. It's pretty different in looks wise and taste, because it's like more when he's more surprised when there are actually some customers who actually know what some of the dishes really are, and they would ask him, can he make some of the actual authentic ones? And then I remember he does make the authentic ones too for when we're all eating as a family, and he'll explain saying this is what this dish is originally supposed to look like. And I always asked him, it's funny, why is it the Chinese? I was like, I'm not sure how much my opinion on it, but I always wondered, because I asked him, like, why does it always seem Chinese food is always one has to change everything? When I look at, say, like the other different cultures, the other Asian cultures, like their foods, I always wondered, they didn't seem to really change much of theirs, but yet Chinese food had to change quite a bit, just to fit Western tastes. And then, out of that, most people, when they think Chinese food, they think just cheap quality type of foods, and they complain about, oh, it's too like greasy or salty or MSG in it.
I remember reading an Asian American studies class that chop suey isn't even a Chinese cuisine. It's basically American.
I heard of that. It was just something that I heard it was just chop suey was just something that they just put something together to try to make a meal. They took whatever leftovers that they had just to make something.
I especially feel complicated now that Viet cuisine is becoming more mainstream. And people are telling me how to eat it. And I'm like, bruh, I'm Viet. I know how to eat it. Don't tell me what to do.
Oh, God.
And so it's one of the core issues that I notice with non-Asians is the lack of acknowledgement of where the food comes from, or even just blatant disrespect for it and lecturing you on how to eat your food.
Interestingly enough, Filipino food has not really burst into the mainstream palate in the way that other cuisines have. It's just starting to, and most of the popular Filipino restaurants are more fusion and kind of more bougie. So I don't feel like I've personally felt affected by that, but there is something that bothered me. There's a Filipino chef who started selling ube donuts, and that's fine, except that he makes a version that's covered in gold, like 24 karat gold leaf, and it's how much is it? $1,200 for a box of a dozen. And while it's fascinating to see this creativity in regards to Filipino cuisine, it bothers me because it's not accessible to the majority of Filipinos. Like, even if I could pay that much for a box of a dozen donuts, I wouldn't. And so who is the audience? Who's the customer that he's serving this to? It's probably bougie white people. And I'm glad that he's successful, but it still bothers me that it feels like it's at the expense of authentic cuisine, because nobody knows what that is, really.
That's kind of the conversation that prompted us to do the podcast in the first place with, because Jay mentioned that. And we were kind of wondering that if we could appropriate our own thing, because it's to a different audience that isn't to the community. But I think Ugly Delicious highlighted that in a sense that it has to have authenticity, and that's something that people really look for in food. And I mean, I'm not going to be criticizing someone else's food. Like, how authentic is it to put gold flakes on something? I mean, that's your choice. But it's something to consider when we go to these establishments. And again, I feel like David Chang was really advocating for our food to be elevated to the same level as other cuisines. And I think that's also a different perspective on the issue. And I think that's important to consider as well. But you can't help but feel a bit conflicted about it, especially when you have, like, your earliest memories of eating this food is probably with, like, older people or your mom making it, like, really inexpensively, or going back to your own country and having it for a few cents. It gets a bit, conflicting.
Yeah, it was meant to be accessible, so it bugs me when it isn't.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, the peasant food suddenly becomes, like, $12,000. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And pho becomes really expensive.
I guess the only thing I can think of is it just reminds me of how I think with food we would have customers, like, you know how we have sometimes customers who, I guess they must like something a certain way or taste a certain way, or they must have eaten it at a different place. I would say sometimes because, like, because my dad, he's the one who cooks, and he always cooks everything by order. Sometimes we get, I don't know, we sometimes get these customers who it's like, they're trying to tell us how it's supposed to taste.
Oh, God.
And like, no, we always made it this way. And it's like, it kind of makes me wonder, really? Why did you even bother ordering this dish if you're going to complain, saying this is not how it's supposed to taste? Then shouldn't you try to make it yourself?
I went to China. I know exactly how it's supposed to taste.
That's infuriating.
Or the worst is, I know, like, say this dish, I know it's called sesame chicken. I remember this one time, because, you just have to put sesame seeds on top, and I don't know how, because my dad does, like, what it used to sprinkle it on there, you're supposed to, that's what we do for that dish. And I remember we had this one customer complain that there was too much sesame seeds on it. I don't know. That just didn't make sense to me at all.
It has the word sesame in the name.
I remember
God.
I remember asking some people before, is there such thing as having too much sesame seeds on sesame chicken? And I have quite a few of them said no. And some of these some of these people I asked, who are I guess some friends who were non-Asian, even they said no, they don't. There's no such thing as too much sesame seeds on sesame chicken. There's no such thing. Of course not.
Oh my god! Like we probably have a lot of white people stories in food, but that would take a long time to talk. Maybe another time.
Oh, I wish we could talk. I have a whole spiel about that.
So yeah. Oh no, it was okay. We do have quite a few customers who have like these different kind of health things. I mean, we had one customer who always asks like, I think they either order the lo mein or pancit, and they always ask, can you use like less oil? So I was like, sure. Or we have customers who ask, can you have no MSG? Like, sure. Because everything cooked by order. So it's like everything we have cooked by order, we can do that. Or. So, I mean, it's like really, it's like funny how my dad didn't mind it too much. He's like, oh, it's okay. Because most of the ones who do that are usually the long-time customers anyways. They've been ordering from the restaurant for almost 10 years or more, so.
Oh, my pet peeve is the MSG thing, though. Because I remember serving people who be like,
oh, God.
Does this have MSG in it? And I'm just like, do you even know what the fuck MSG is, mate? Like, do you know what it is? But I obviously couldn't say that. So I was just like, yeah. And they just give me a dirty look, like I'm trying to poison them. I'm like, this is why the food tastes good.
Dude, I'm pretty sure the same people complaining about MSG in Asian food are like double fisting Doritos bags. That also has MSG in it.
Fact.
Like my mom's like looking at their food and going, their food's fucking unhealthy, right? Our food is good.
Yeah, don't tell me what to do.
Or sometimes we have customers who ask about, I guess they're trying to ask because, trying to have dietary restrictions. And sometimes they ask about how you're trying to go on a diet, how to talk about, they keep thinking fried, everything's fried. And we'd always tell them, I always tell them like which dishes are more likely to be steamed. And we tell them majority of our dishes are, you want to avoid fried foods, avoid anything that goes into the deep fryers. But most of our foods are stir fry, and my parents always try to tell people, stir fry is not bad. I mean, it's not like it's like sitting in the oil. It's like you had to put a little oil into the wok so you can cook everything. So they try to tell the customers, stir fry is okay. I mean, just avoid anything that's going into the deep fryers, such as the egg rolls, the chicken teriyakis, the beef teriyakis. Just avoid those things like the deep fryers, and you should be fine.
So, the point of what we're trying to say is, we just want to be respected. Give credit when it's due. And allow POC to also thrive on this food. Make it accessible. Because that's the whole issue. The core of Ugly Delicious, why we like shows like this, is because it's conveying what we've already been thinking all along about our stance on food as Asian Americans or Asian Australians or people of Asian diaspora. We're tired of not getting the recognition or the payments we deserve, so it's that simple. Just acknowledge. Acknowledge you're benefiting from our food and give us opportunities to also thrive in the economy and benefit from this food. So yeah, we're Journey to the West. MV. You can find me on Miss Vinuin on all my accounts. And Jay.
I'm Jay. Thanks for listening. My Twitter handle is J_MARAAN.
And Sen?
I'm Sen. You can find me on SEN_TIENT.
And our lovely Wen, who does not have social media.
Yeah, I don't have social media.
You guys don't need to say it every time. Just say bye or something.
Fine, bye. Fine, bye, everyone.
Alright, bye, guys.
See you next time.
Bye.